Parshas Bo. If you were wondering, why is it that God makes Pharaoh's heart heavy? The answer to that question, apparently, is in the first two verses of this week's Parsha, Perek Yud, Psukim Aleph and Beis. Chapter 10, verses 1 and 2. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, Bo el Paro. Hashem said to Moshe, come, or go, to Paro. Ki ani hichbaditi es libo, for I have hardened his heart. Actually, it's heavied his heart. And there's a good question, which is, what's the difference between hichbid, hichzik, achazek, akshe? I will make heavy, I will make strong, I will harden, for a different discussion. But we just note the differences. Here we have hichbaditi es libo, I have made heavy his heart, vesleiv avodav, and the heart of his servants, lama'an shisi ososai ele b'kerbo, so that I may place these signs among him. So apparently there's one reason. Lama'an means so that. So we see here, Lama'an shisi ososai ele b'kerbo, that I may show these signs in their midst, I may place these signs. This is an introduction to the Makkah of Arba, of the locusts that swarmed and consumed grain and produce in the field. Pasuk Beis, that's a reason that the verse has cited. Now, this verse 2. Ulama'an tesaper baznei bincha, and so that you may tell in the ears or the hearing of your son, uben bincha, and the son of your son, your child and your grandchild, es asher hisalalti b'Mitzrayim, how I played with Egypt, the es ososai asher samti vam, and my signs that I have placed among them, vidatem ki ani Hashem, and you will know that I am Hashem. It appears that there are two reasons. The reason is introduced by the word lama'an, so that. In other words, these are means to an end. What's these? It's actually the plagues. It's this plague. It's the hardening of Pharaoh's heart, or the heavying of Pharaoh's heart by God to the plagues. What are the reasons? So the first one is so that the signs will be among them. And the second is so that the Israelites can tell to their children and their grandchildren how God treated the Egypt and all of the signs that he placed among them, and they will know God. So there appear to be two distinct reasons and two distinct audiences. Audience number one is Egypt. The Netziv suggests, and we'll talk about his explanation with a little bit more detail in a bit. The Netziv suggests that this is not just for Egypt, although it is targeted at Egypt, but it's for all nations of the world other than the Israelites, that they will know that there is a God. These signs, Lama'an shisi ososai ele b'kerbo, that I can place these signs among them. Why? What's the purpose? Okay, God places these signs among them. What's the purpose for placing the signs among them? We're going to see that the Netziv quotes a verse in Yehoshua in a moment. But we see a second reason that's cited, which is that you, meaning the Bnei Yisrael, can tell their children, their grandchildren, establishing a Mesorah, a tradition of how God dealt with the Egyptians and the signs that he placed among them. Vidatem ki ani Hashem, and you will know that I am God. And that's it. So what are these two things? So the Netziv says that these two explanations describe two distinct purposes for the same action. The action is hardening of Pharaoh's heart. Hardening of Pharaoh's heart leads to his rejection of the plea, of the request of Moshe and Aaron to let their people go. And as a result, he stands there and takes it. Now he waffles on taking it from time to time, but at the end of the day, his resolve to stay the course overwhelms his resolve to let the Jews go. So he ends up allowing Egypt to bear the brunt of the 10 plagues. The Netziv says that for the Egyptians, and by extension the nations of the world, and by nations of the world we mean everybody except the Jews, what is sometimes referred to as the Gentiles, that they will have an understanding of God and his supervision of the world, if you will, his intervention, God's intervention in history. For the Bnei Israel, for the children of Israel, it's a step higher than that. It's that they have a background for observing mitzvos. How does that work? So the Netziv quotes Yehoshua. And Yehoshua, in Perek Daled, we have Pasuk Chav Daled, in chapter 4 of Joshua, verse 24. Actually, we'll start with verse verses 21 through 24. Just free translation. Hashem says to Bnei Yisrael, this is verse 21, when your children ask you what are these stones, and you tell them that this is the stones that were set when they crossed the Jordan River. And again, it's to remind their children that Hashem was there and helped the Jews cross the Jordan on dry land. And just like Ka'asher Asa, this is now 23, Chav Gimel, Ka'asher Asa Hashem Elokechem Yamsuf Asher Hovish Miponenu Ad Avrenu. Just like he did with the Yamsuf, the Red Sea, the Sea of Reeds, that he dried it up so that we could cross. Why? So now, verse 24, Lama'an da'as kol amei ha'aretz es yad Hashem ki chazakahi, so that all the nations of the world will know the hand of God, that it is strong. Lama'an yirasem, and the Mitzuros David says this Lama'an is like Ulaman, and so that you will fear God es Hashem Elokechem kol hayamim, all the days. What does all the days mean? For the Netziv, this is a very important point. All the days doesn't just mean forever, as it is sometimes translated, but it means all day. That there is a unique obligation each and every day, and all day, kol hayamim, all of the days. The Netziv says that for the nations of the world, the expectation is a God consciousness, an awareness of God, and one might say a fear of punishment. Punishment for what? So we know that there are 7 Noahide laws. There are 7 fundamental laws that, according to the Torah, every human being is expected to follow. Every human being is expected not to transgress. For the Jew, there's more than 7, and for the Jew, there's more than just being aware of God and being afraid of punishment by God, but there is also kol hayamim. There is a daily routine of observance. Every day. Sometimes the days are different. If it's Shabbos, it's different than if it's Friday. If it's Yom Tov, it's different than if it's a weekday. If it's Yom Kippur, it's different than any other holiday. But every day has its observance, whether it's a special observance or regular observance. But there are observances every day. For the nations of the world, fundamentally, with the exception of establishing a court system, fundamentally, there are things that the people of the world shouldn't do. Shouldn't kill, shouldn't murder, shouldn't steal, shouldn't commit adultery, shouldn't take God's name in vain, shouldn't eat Aver Menachai, flesh from a living animal. And the obligations are mainly in desisting from inappropriate, or one might say immoral actions. For the Jew, there's a higher standard of conduct, just like within the Jewish people themselves, there's a higher standard of conduct, for example, among Kohanim. Kohanim are not allowed to be Matame Lameis, they're not allowed to expose themselves, to defile themselves by exposure to a dead body. They have certain obligations for service in the Beis HaMikdash. And the Almighty says about us, Vatem tihiyuli mamleches kohanim v'goy kadosh. Just like there are kohanim within the Jews themselves as a people are to be mamleches kohanim, a nation of kohanim. Kohanim are servants. We're supposed to be a nation of servants. We serve God. We also serve humanity. How we do that is by observing mitzvos and by spreading an awareness of God. That is 24/7. That is every day, all day, different things every day. Our God consciousness is not simply an awareness of God and God's power and his role in history, but our God consciousness says we have to do something about it. We don't just desist from inappropriate or immoral actions, but we engage in activities that lead us to Vidatem ki ani Hashem, and you will know that I am God. And we know that, using that expression, the word Yediah means an intimate knowledge. It connotes a relationship of intimacy. And so we have an opportunity as a result of the Mesorah of Lamanta Saper Ba'aznei Bincho Ben Bincha, the Mesorah, the tradition of transmission from parent to child to grandchild, etc., ad sof kaladoros, to the end of time, that we have a notion of Atov v'chartonu mikol ha'amim, you have chosen us from all the people. Ahavta osanu v'ratzis labanu v'ramamtanu mikol ha'shanos, you lifted us above all languages. V'kidashtanu mitzvosecha, and you sanctified us with your mitzvos. V'kartanu ma'keinu lavodosecha, and you brought us close to your service. In other words, through the mitzvos, we take the baseline inspiration for the entire world, which is understanding that God exists and that God acts in history, and we take that several notches higher to establish through our daily observance of Taryag, of the 613 mitzvos, and all the derivatives, a special relationship with the Almighty. Have a good Shabbos.